then what we can do is remove them and replace them with a different tree. But overall, I think we need to maintain our number of trees. It's important. It benefits our community. On a rainy day, I mean, the air is so clean that it makes a difference. So I don't believe in removing these 20-something trees that define our uptown Whittier. I think we have priorities like our sidewalks. There's ways to maintain what we have, but we also have these empty lots, these buildings that are still scarred by the '87 earthquake.
Yes.
And I think that's priority over us removing a tree.
Okay, I have one more question. Same topic. We have electric vehicles coming out now that aren't as reliant on fossil fuels, but so far we're one of the communities and most communities in America are like this, we still haven't started setting up charging stations for these electric vehicles to encourage people to start transitioning over.
Yes. Well, look, charging stations were a thing of the 90s. They were talking about in 98, 99. We're going to have these vehicles that are going to be electric. We need charging stations. We need to hook them up.
It never happened, though.
It never did happen. We do have vehicles that you do have to charge. You have to plug them in somewhere. But the idea to invest money on a charging station, I mean, we have Teslas. We have these hybrids that are taking over with technology. As someone that, well, I'm an engineer, and as someone that works with technology, I'm thinking 10 years down the line.
Yes.
In 10 years, these vehicles that are electric, they run by a system, a braking system. You brake and it creates more energy for the vehicle. As you're running, as you're doing certain things, it repowers itself. You can extend the life of a tank. 1 gallon of fuel should be able to power your vehicle for a month. I know that there's technology out there with carburetors that will run 100 miles to a gallon. And I know this because I've looked into the specs. We're planning for something that should have happened 15, 20 years ago, including like our parking structure.
Well, we were growing up, and that's what we were told about. As soon as when we were young adults, we would be having these, and here we are. We're in our 40s, and we still don't have those.
Well, when we were kids, we were looking at the Jetsons, flying cars. But we hear recently in the news, you know what? These vehicles that are going to fly to get you from one city to the next. Cut traffic. We see Uber looking into it, Google. I mean, do we really want to invest on a charging station that odds are is not going to be used? People aren't going to be able to use it for parking. We really need to think ahead. And like I said, all our planning, the Uptown plan and the Whittier plan, these are plans that should have happened 20 years ago. And even now with the parking structure, we've had the Uptown Association that's collected funding to beautify Uptown. And what's happened when Henry Bouchot got elected, he had a meeting where he stated, hey folks, just so you know, all that money, it's gone. So we're starting over, and they're working on with funding to build the parking structure. Obviously that's separate funding. It needs to be used. If we don't use it, we lose it. But that plan is a plan that was dedicated for Ibiza, for those that remember that club. That's gone. We don't have anything that would bring in people to Uptown where people are going to pay to park, because we have a parking structure that's $3 flat fee and it's hardly used. They're looking at putting metered parking and parking cars one right in front of the other instead of our current layout. But I don't see people coming in, paying for parking and sitting in one of our locations. Although they're great, there's nothing to really attract them. If we were to have an Apple store, people would pay. If we were to have Portos or Mary Calendar or Buca de Beppo, something like that, yeah, people will come and they'll get to know Uptown, they'll get to know our commercial districts. But currently with this plan, it's so outdated that we really need to start figuring out who we made these deals with, a few years back, and we need to really see it in a different manner. Now, that parking structure is going to get built regardless. That money has to be spent. But the way I see it, it should be free. We shouldn't be charging people.
Why aren't we letting the residents use it at night when it's not being used?
Of course, especially with the amount of people that live around here. And I would allow overnight parking without ticketing someone or towing them, because We don't want them driving away drunk. We want them to use Uber. We want them to be safe. But in the long term, we have to realize that Uber's taking over. Most of the kids nowadays don't want to get their driver's license because they just take Uber.
But Uber's getting more expensive though, so that's
Of
kind
course.
of discouraging some people from using it.
Yeah, and eventually it's just going to regulate. You're going to have these peaks and these drops, but when it regulates, most of these people that are in Whittier stay in Whittier, and this is going to eventually become a walkway. You're not going to have vehicles here in Uptown. Eventually, they'll end up closing it in order to benefit these businesses. You have people riding their bikes, their skateboards, hanging out. I see this happening 10, 15 years from now, but we're investing on added traffic when the trend is moving away from that because our youth is not driving as much.
I wanted to give you a couple of minutes, take about 5 minutes, just talk about your campaign. Why should people vote for you? You're running again. You mentioned it at the beginning, but I want you to go ahead and just reiterate, just let them know why are you running? Why should you be elected?
Look, there's 3 reasons why I'm running. The first one is education. It's always been my priority. I feel that there's a lack of push for a special needs community. I'm a special needs advocate. One thing that I feel is that there are 6 school districts within the city of Whittier. There's a discrepancy between students that are graduating and the special needs students. I want to ensure that there's an alignment with the IEP and 504 planning for students from 2nd grade to 12th grade to ensure that we have a larger turnout of graduates instead of running them through a system where they end up attending other services once they become adults. That's one of my biggest concerns. I feel that our city is able to help out these school districts to ensure that we reach a higher plateau because currently we have a large learning educational gap from district to district and from zip code to zip code. My second platform is based on commerce. I want to ensure that we feel safe in order to be able to come in, dine in our areas, but I also feel that we need to bring in a larger entity. Like I said it before, in Uptown, it'd be great to have an Apple store because the closest Apple store is Pasadena, Cerritos, LA, or Brea. We're perfect to have a business like that here that would attract people to come in when they're camping out and they get to rediscover Uptown. It would be great to have a Porto's at the Quad where that right next to Michael's where they have that building that used to be a notch. That could easily become a restaurant. That would attract people to that commercial district. And then we have the Whitwood Mall. Sears is, having issues. We have other buildings that might become available.
I'm noticing that we have developments going on in this area, East Whittier. What about the middle though?
Correct. So we need to slow it down, make it more of a walkable community. But commerce is a big issue for me. I want to make it so that businesses have a fast track system to come in and start up right away instead of taking on a lot of the costs. Be able to start bringing in, filling in these empty buildings and creating a community where people are going to take their time to walk around and really get to know Uptown. And last but not least is the homeless situation. I believe that if we become Boise compliant by using our old police station as an emergency shelter that's secure, that we're already paid for, and using nonprofits to come in and provide the services within, we become Boise compliant and able to enforce our laws, our ordinances, clear out these encampments. And I know people are like, get them out. I agree to a certain aspect of that, in that if you have people that are homeless that are causing problems, that are creating crime, that are assaulting people, we need to remove that part of the homeless community from our area because we're on the razor's edge. We don't have many options, but that would be a beginning point. This would also clear up a space so that we're able to help the people that actually need the help, because we do have a lot of nonprofits that are helpful. Right now, everyone's like, well, this nonprofit is providing for them, that's why they won't leave. Other people are saying, they're providing there's, gangs that are providing drugs for these encampments and they won't leave. Well, technically, these homeless people don't have an option. They're all lumped into one group, And if we become Boise compliant, we're able to separate these groups and provide the assistance needed. But in the end, if they refuse services, then we're able to kick them out. Once that's accomplished, once we become Boise compliant, then we actually have footing to be able to go back, push back against the county and the state, and have them revise AB 109, Proposition 47, and Prop 57 to ensure that they start now acquiring some of the accountability for these people that are out here, for them to provide services for the people that these laws push back out into our community. So that's my biggest reason for becoming Boise compliant. One, to enforce the law. The second one, to be able to help those that actually require the help and are not causing the problems. And third, but most importantly, is to push back onto the county and to the state and say, we're now compliant, we're the first to do it, we're leaders, and we want to work with you to revise these law changes to ensure that you are now accountable like we've become in taking a big portion of this problem, which is the mentally ill and the drug addicted. They leave it up to the cities to decide on how to handle that. We're given only one directive, which is the city must provide shelter for 60% of the people. We have a facility to do it that's secure, because no drug dealer is going to walk into a police station. But we also have to start pushing back once we become compliant onto the state.